And welcome back, everybody, to another episode of Around the Bases with Bubba and Mo, episode 99. And similar to Wild Thing from Major League, we actually have some news to talk about, some fun news, exciting news. You can find Mo on Twitter at Boston_Mo. I am at BDentric, the pod at Around Bases Pod. Mo, I'm so excited. How are you doing?
I'm doing great. We have news to talk about. This is something I didn't think would happen, and the Padres did it, Bubba.
Yes, they finally did it, which is really, really awesome. I can't believe it happened, but they did it. And why don't you the Padres signed Manny Machado, 10 years, $300 million, opt out after the fifth year, all that good stuff. Why don't you give me some thoughts on that move?
Look, I think the only take to have here is baseball is going to be okay. Granted, I'm not gonna overdo it and say, oh, well, this is a small market team. They're actually paying some people, they're actually paying people, and they're paying stars, and they're paying him the richest contract in sports history. I think it ended up being in terms of the AAV and the amount of years, I believe is what it was. This is a no-brainer. I think any take that is, well, they can't win now. I know I've seen Dodgers fans do that. I'm sure I've seen other fans say the same thing. Yeah, they don't have any pitching. Buster only came out with a ridiculous article, which I just did not want to read. I'm not even sure I could read it because I think it was insider. But any other take other than that this is a good thing for the Padres and for baseball is wrong. They need pitching. They have a ton of pitching coming up. We've talked about Chris Paddock. We've talked about Mackenzie Gore, Cal Quantrill. They got Anderson Espinoza, who's coming back this season. So they had to figure out which one of those. Obviously, it's Paddock and Mackenzie Gore right up the front. Is going to be in their rotation long term. You got Joey Lucchesi, who's already there. Garrett Richards will be back next year, and that's a good veteran presence there. So they're going to get there eventually, and this was just a miss for the White Sox. And it's great for the Padres. And now maybe we see. I know you hinted at a Kluber trade. I hinted at a Trevor Bauer trade. I think we did it at the same time, which is kind of funny. So one of those guys will be traded eventually. Who knows when? That'll be another interesting thing, whether they can move, because they have too many prospects. I mean, you can never have too many, right? But you have to decide which ones are going to be in your long-term plans and which ones aren't. And once they do that to get themselves a frontline starter, then they're off and running. You saw what the Royals did. Granted, they had Cueto, they had Ventura, but the staff wasn't tremendous there. It was bullpen. And they've always shown the Brad Hands of the world, now Kirby Yates, they can develop good bullpen arms. And if they continue to do it, they're going to surprise some people. And it's coming at the right time. I think the last one from me on this is coming at the right time because your Giants about to go on a rebuild. The Diamondbacks are already starting their rebuild. The Rockies could be next year a semi sort of rebuild, back to around 78 to 82 wins when Arenado leaves. And then the Dodgers, they're not getting younger, but they're still going to be there. So it's the perfect time for them to strike.
Yeah, I absolutely love it. And people saying it's a dumb move makes me laugh. It's because, sure, it probably doesn't, make them a contender this year. That's pretty Captain Obvious stuff. But like you said, there's so many prospects in the works. There's so many other angles to it that, Machado, at least if he's there for only 5 years, it's still going to be there when the big time prospects come up. You add a couple more moves through trades with all the prospects you have. Signings are going to be a little more difficult. They still have a ton of cash, but pretty soon you're going to have over $70 million a year, like almost 80 to 90 a year wrapped up between Hosmer, Myers, and Machado, which not ideal, but still, 70 to 80 million in those isn't bad when everyone else is making a league minimum. So you can definitely build around that. There's rumors there's still going to be another splash. Take those as a grain of salt because John Heyman's reporting it, but he was also the $50 million man. So take that with what you wish. It does suck for the White Sox. All the rumors out here, like Ken Rosenthal was saying, they offered more if you put the incentives and everything together. But
the tax bracket, yeah.
Yeah, but the Padres offered the guaranteed cash, and you get to live in San Diego, given it costs a lot and can be shitty living in California at times. But, that guaranteed cash goes a long ways. And I love the fact I've been telling friends forever, I think we talked about it on this pod between both of us, is him and Harper are going to get opt-out deals. I honestly thought Machado would get maybe like a 3-year and like a 5 or 6, like multiple opt-out options. But the fact he got at least one makes tons of sense because, he'll be 31 years old. He gets one more shot to maybe after the whole bargaining agreement gets restructured, he can go make another boatload of cash. Like there's so many angles to this that works out so well for both sides. I'm really, really happy the Padres are doing it. He'll be in the NL West, which will be fun. You mentioned the Dodgers; they're always going to be good for a little while longer, at least as their youth keeps rising. And if the Padres can utilize their youth the right way, with Tatis coming up, you got Urias up, Mejia's coming. That outfield is just ridiculously loaded. There's too many pieces there. With the pitching you mentioned, they can go make a couple moves if they really wanted to get crazy. I don't think they need to get that crazy. I agree, Bauer or Kluber, either one. Just get one of those Indians arms. That seems like the easiest route. Maybe they go somewhere else. Maybe one of the splash signings is they bring Kimbrel back, or they go and get Keuchel. Like they go grab a couple other guys to make them more of a contender this season, and then can kind of maybe they're shorter term deals and they make things happen with their prospects in the future. So many ways they can go because they're proving to everybody that everyone has money, and that's what I love about this. For the second straight year, the Padres are signing the biggest contract in baseball, Mo. That says so much about what's screwed up in baseball is the Padres of all teams are the ones spending money.
Yeah, and that was the sad part for me today is that if they didn't give Hosmer that contract last year, I'm fully in on the Padres being ready next year because they could splash that money, like you said, on a Keuchel or a Kimbrel, or even, hey, let's go get Harper too. And the last thing I'll take from this, were you surprised that his opt-out was after 5 years and not 3?
Yeah, that's what I was saying. I thought he was going to get like a 3 and a 6. I thought there'd be multiple opt-outs. It works out better, I think, for both teams because of the fact that it's 5. It allows the Padres prospects to come up and develop and maybe make a good run for a couple years with Machado. Because by year 3, maybe the prospects wouldn't all be fully ready and they'd be just getting towards that brink. And now you got to hope he sticks around. Now you might get a couple years to run with them. And if the run's good, maybe he says, screw it, I'm sticking for 5 more and make it happen. So I think it's really cool that it worked out for both sides very, very well.
Yeah, completely agree. All right, let's get to a couple extensions we got going on here. We've got the first one, and it's 2 big pitchers. The first one's Aaron Nola. That was your sleeper Cy Young guy last year, and he almost got there. He basically signed off 2 of his free agency years with this deal, and it's pretty much a total of like $45 million because of the buyout on his option. It'll be his age 30 season of when he'll be a free agent. I think a lot of people in terms of the Players Association weren't too happy that he did this. But at this point, I don't blame him at all. And you know what? He'll be 30. He'll still be pretty much in his prime, 4 years left, something like that, depending on, what he's able to do. He's not a 99-mile-an-hour fastball guy like a Syndergaard, so maybe he can pitch later in his career than other guys. But what do you think of this deal for the Phillies? I mean, great deal for the Phillies. But what do you think of it for kind of them and Nola?
It's phenomenal for the Phillies. You lock down your ace for the next 4 years. He'll be there with Arrieta and Pivetta and all the other youngsters coming up. There's a lot to like in that respect. Obviously, it's good for both sides because Nola's coming off a career year, and I still think he's going to be really, really good. But what he did last year is going to be hard to top. So he's cashing in. And like as much as I hated the Whit Merrifield deal, with pitchers it's completely different.
Right.
Like I'm okay with the pitcher getting his arbitration years bought out, getting some guaranteed cash because a pitcher's career can end on one pitch. And that's the scary part. Like hitters, yeah, you can tear an ACL, you can do this or that. But all things considered, you're not going to ruin your entire career unless something just crazy happens. A pitcher literally can go have Tommy John and never bounce back the same way. Now, with procedures these days, we're seeing differences, but I think you guys know what I'm saying. It's a whole different angle. So the fact that he gets this, and then the best part is, he's 25, like 26 this season. So when this is all said and done, he'll be like 30 years old, 31. He'll still be able to get one really good contract if he's still pitching this good. If Aaron Nola pitches 85 to 90% as well as he did last year for the next 4 years, he's going to get Max Scherzer money. He's going to get Chris Sale money. It'll be after the new bargaining agreement. This works out really well. We'll talk about another guy here in a minute. I'm good with these deals. It's the offensive guys, the hitters that kind of confuse me a little more. But when it comes to pitching, I'm all for it. It's phenomenal for the Phillies. In the other part is kind of like you can relate with Brady. You know, you have certain guys save some cash, get team-friendly deals, and now you go knock on Harper's door and go, look at, hey, we got a few extra $1 million lying around. Does this intrigue you a little more? So it works for everybody involved.
Yeah, there's not much to add to this. You're right. I mean, he's a tremendous pitcher. You can't take a chance because, like you said, you know, Tommy John surgery happens to, I mean, a good amount of starters, relievers, everyone. It doesn't matter. It happened to the position players in the last couple of years with the Corey Seagers and the Gleyber Torres of like. It's just a good deal for both. There really isn't much to add to this. I think, you know, you bought out 2 years of your free agency. That's a lot, but I don't, you know, in those 2 years, he's literally getting $31 million. Yeah, maybe if he continues to pitch like this in the new collective bargaining agreement, maybe he gets around 25. So if he maybe costs himself 20, but if then you look on the other side and if he gets hurt, he doesn't get any of this. So that I'm fine with this. And the same goes for the next guy too.
Yeah, the next guy, Luis Severino, like when we're talking Nola Severino, we're talking two of the most exciting arms in baseball, like young arms in baseball. You know, we're going to talk starting pitcher fantasy here later. There's people literally debating. I just talked to Matt Modica that has no problem with Nola or Severino going after the big three. These two guys are really, really good.
Yeah.
And we're going to see them in the playoffs probably this season. I'm pretty sure we know the Yankees. We think the Yankees are going to win the East. The Phillies, a little more up in the air, but would not shock either one of us.
Easy there, easy.
Okay, I think we're pretty sure the Yankees will be in the playoffs.
There you go.
And so Severino gets a 4-year, $40 million guarantee, so a little less than Nola, which is part of the interesting question here. But it does have a 5th-year option as well, so the deal can total up to like 52. Almost 52 and a half. It buys out his first year of free agency, unlike Nola got his first 2 bought out. So it's kind of, you know, pick your poison on how it works. They're both going to be free agents around the same time, which will be fun to see how that market goes. But what's your thoughts on Severino? To me, just to say short and sweet, very similar to my thoughts on Nola.
Yeah, very similar. I think there was a little bit more questions on Severino in terms of, you know, when he first came up, he wasn't great. And he was moved to the bullpen and you didn't know what was going to happen. And then when they finally gave him a chance, he was their best pitcher all of a sudden. And he was very good. And obviously he's a top 10 pitcher in baseball, maybe top 5. I think what everyone's kind of seeing, and I think he's a very polarizing figure in the fantasy world where I don't think anyone's in the middle on it. I think you're either out 100% on Severino or you're like, this is the guy. He's going to do what he did in 2017. We know that. And there's a big, I think the article was on The Athletic, I forget, but way back in October that he was basically tipping his pitches. And they saw it and they will fix it. And it was sort of like a Yu Darvish, except this guy's 25 years old. So we're not going to be worried about him. The velocity shouldn't go anywhere. I'm a Yankee hater. Obviously, I'm not worried about him. I'm not sure.
I'm not worried about him. Oh my God.
Well, I mean, in terms of if you put me in a Yankees shirt, like I'm in a Red Sox shirt right now, you put me in a Yankees shirt as a Yankees fan, I'm not worried about him. Gotcha. Sort of like we'll get into Chris Sale later. Like if I have him on a fantasy team, I'm not going to be worried about it. Granted, again, we'll talk about it later. I'm not sure I'm going to have him at that. I like other guys better than him, but he will come back and be better than he was in the second half last year. So this is, again, another good contract. I think he said in the article that his mom was like, oh, did you win? He goes, no, but I got paid $40 million. So it's good for him because even though he was a top prospect coming up, he struggled early and kind of bounced back and won it back, especially in a city that's very tough to play in.
Yeah, and just one last thing is, again, I like it for the pitchers aspects for both these guys. And sure, in arbitration, we're seeing like DeGrom and these guys get a killing, but that's assuming they stay healthy. So again, I'm good with it here, but like some of these hitters, you just saw what Arenado made in arbitration. If I saw a guy of these guys' calibers offensively, Merrifield's not in these guys' caliber. He's really good, but not these guys. If an offensive talent, like if Juan Soto goes and signs an extension, I'll be furious. Like he needs to go fight the system. Because if he keeps doing what he's doing, he's going to be making record numbers like Harper and Arenado did. So that's kind of the difference between the two for me.
Yeah, and Soto, again, I could be wrong in this. I think I'm right, but when the new CBA is there, he'll be like ready to hit arbitration. So I wonder that'll be kind of another big case that will happen right after that 2022 year. We go to the Twins. They extended 2 of their young hitters. They extended Jorge Polanco, coming off the PED suspension, and Max Kepler. I think Polanco will get around $25 million, and it has 2 option years after that. So he was under control for the next 4. And I believe they took 3 years of his free agency. So 2 or 3 years. So they really they really got him. But when you come off a PED suspension, I guess you take it. Again, Kepler, 5-year deal worth $35 million. Club auction for a 6th season, which is valued around $10 million. So it could be worth upwards of $45 million for him. And I think it's very interesting. I think a lot of people like Jorge Polanco. Max Kepler, last season, Bubba, he took on the sort of launch angle revolution. I mean, he really went big on the fly ball. His ground ball rate went down 5%. Fly ball rate went up 7%. He hit 20 homers in 156 games. The average is tough. He does walk a good amount and doesn't strike out crazy. So maybe this is a guy that probably could have bet on himself and just decided not to.
Yeah, Kepler, like you said, Polanco, he just paid the I took steroids tax. That's the way I look at it. Like, he's really, really good. We talked about him in the shortstop preview. He's been talked about everywhere. His ADP keeps rising. This guy's really good. Like, he's a good ball player. He's young. He's going to be good. The Twins got a deal on this one. Regardless of how the whole package ends, they got a deal. So that works out well. The Kepler one's interesting because, like you said, he took on the revolution. You look at more of his splits. He's a better hitter against lefties than righties last year, which was very surprising.
Weird.
Yeah, hit 246. The power, obviously, versus the righties, but he also had almost 2/3 more at bats against righties than lefties. He crushed it at home, really struggled on the road, and given there have been stats that have shown, Minnesota is actually a pretty friendly park to hit in once it gets warm there. So I'll start and say May, it gets pretty decent. It's just really interesting with Kepler. Even if you look at his month by month, it just staggers. There's really no consistency with him. It's just something about the guy, because when you just look at his overall numbers, when the season's all said and done, 19 homers 2 years ago, 20 last year, 17 3 years ago. So since he's had a regular job, 113 games or more, 17 or more homers. He's driving in, 60 to 70 runs. He's scoring. Last year he scored 80 runs. And that's the kind of guy I think you're getting. His walk rate increased last year. You mentioned the launch angle. You go look at his StatCast numbers, his exit velo and stuff. They are on the way up. It's really interesting with him. He's a guy that I'm okay with him getting paid. It just feels like he might have done himself a disservice, because the other thing is, I've heard Eno and a bunch of other guys mention it. This kid, I should say, came over from Germany, and he really didn't start playing baseball until 3 or 4 years ago, before people started catching on to him. So he hasn't even played his whole life. He's still learning the game and developing his tools. So as we see his numbers increase each year, we're actually seeing him develop as a ball player, which obviously makes sense. But what I'm trying to say is, we may see a really special player on our hands that's going to take a big leap here pretty soon. He's going to be in a lineup with Nelly Cruz, hopefully with the rejuvenated Miguel Sano and so many other pieces there. This could be an absolute steal for the Twins. It's good Kepler got paid. That's fine. He's going to be a free agent. But this 31-year-old group is going to be an insane free agency. Pretty much every guy we've talked about here, they're all about the same age when they hit free agency. But I like Kepler a ton this year. I think he's super good value, and I think they got a steal, because I think he's gonna fall into a nice 25 to 30 home run type guy. I think the average he'll get it up to 250-ish consistently once he gets comfortable. And I wouldn't be shocked if he's like an 80 runs, 80 RBI plus with upside from year to year. I think it's a steal of a deal.
Yeah, I echo everything you said. I mean, and I'll just add to it. Like, he's not gonna bat 224. He's gonna be around 245 to 255. Like you said, his walk rate went up. His K percentage went down. His BABIP was 236. It's going to be better than that, around 260-ish. And I already mentioned the fly ball, the hard hit rate. Swing strike percentage is down. His O swing percentage outside of the zone swinging was the lowest it's been in his career. His contact percentage highest been in his career. Zone contact highest. So just everything points to him just being much better than he was last year. And I really would love to see him. I'm not going to blame anyone for basically guaranteeing yourself $35 to $45 million. It's tough to do that, but I think in the Jeff Sullivan piece, I only read the headline, not betting on himself, and that's sort of where I got that from. Haven't read it yet, but I mean, I don't even think I need to read it, because it just screams at you on his Fangraphs page. So, and I'm sure the Statcast page is the same thing. So it's good for him. And it's somebody, again, I don't think we really mentioned him in the outfielders piece, but he's someone that people should target late in the drafts.
Yeah, and just a couple other factors. Like I just pulled the StatCast page up. In 16, 3.9% barrels, 17.4. He's up to 6.6% barrels last year. So constantly on the rise. His exit velo is getting close to 90. His launch angle has gone from 8.3, 12.7 last year at 16.2, like you said. Everything points to just his hard hits, 37.6, which was similar to 16, but it's really good. And like you mentioned, I really love the drop in K percentage, the increase in walk percentage. It might still be another year or two, but by the end of this contract, this kid's going to be really, really good. And he's actually – the other thing, if you look at sprint speed, for some reason he only stole 4 bases last year.
I was just going to say that, yeah.
He's in the 72nd percentile. He's fast. It might just be the philosophy of the team. So maybe with Baldelli this year, I'm not going to say he's going to go steal bases. But, 10 bases isn't out of the question for a kid that's this fast and is still developing his game. Maybe he's not comfortable stealing and, he works on taking leads and jumps because, like I said, we really need to pay attention to the fact he's still rather new to the game of baseball.
Yeah, and he stole 18 bases in 2015 in AAA, I believe it was. So it's there. So 10 steals, like you said, is not out of the question.
So yeah, that's an interesting one to keep an eye on. I think out of all the extensions we talked about, even the Whit Merrifield one, and we didn't talk about every extension because some aren't as relevant, but to me, the Max Kepler one, especially position player wise, might come out as one of the bigger steals in this whole offseason. But it's perfect because we haven't really, unless I missed you saying it, you might have said it. When it comes to the Twins, these are the deals they have to make, and this makes them so much stronger for the future when you can lock in your shortstop, lock in your right fielder to go with your other talented players you have there and the young players you still have coming up from the minors. There's a lot to like there in Minnesota, and the scary part is I don't know if they'll do it, so maybe it's an organizational philosophy, but like what we're seeing with San Diego, the Twins have that money too. So one of these days, maybe they say screw it and they go sign a couple of guys instead of one-year guys like Scope and Nelson Cruz. Maybe they go make a couple splashes and then watch out.
Yeah, and I guess the last point with the Twins is they've got Nick Gordon. They've got former number 1 pick Royce Lewis. You got to think one of them goes to second. I know Royce Lewis is the guy, so they'll have to figure that out when they get there, but I guess it's a good problem to have.
It's a very, very good problem to have. It's a problem the Padres are looking at right now, and it's a problem I wouldn't mind having as a Giants fan. All right, let's talk about the Moose. This is a great deal. Well, for a team wanting to continue to contend this year, I know you're going to bring up a factor, which I agree with. It disturbs other deals, but Mike Moustakas, 1 year, $10 million, going back to Milwaukee. Great park to hit in. Insane lineup. It's weird because when they traded for him, they moved Travis Shaw to second. They just re-signed Moustakas, but now they're talking about putting Moustakas at second. Either way, they're both going to be flipped around there. Defense is optional, as we talked about the whole second half on the podcast last year with the Brewers. They just want to go hit as many home runs as their slow pitch softball team. And Mike Moustakas could easily hit 30-plus in that ballpark, no problem. I think it's a great deal. There's a 2019 option as well, a mutual option for $11 million if he sticks around. So it could be like a 2-year, $18 million deal when it's all said and done. I think it's a great deal. What's your thoughts?
Man, did Scott Boras really, really misread this guy's market? I mean, really, he basically got paid. I think it was $17 million for 2 years, or maybe close to 20 with bonuses and whatnot. And if he just accepted that qualifying offer from Kansas City, he would have made $17 million last year. So it's just Boras just misread this market completely on him. Good for him. The one thing I would think about with the whole defense is shifting. I mean, with shifting now, I mean, for a lefty for him, he's all the way in right field anyway. So it's almost like he's playing third base out there. Now, granted, obviously it's a little bit different, turning two and whatnot. And clearly they've already said that Travis Shaw is going to be their third baseman, and I'm sure they'll work it around, give Jesus Aguilar a day off here and there, and maybe throw Travis Shaw at first base. So Moustakas will probably still get his 30 to 40 games at third base. But I think the point that you would kind of foreshadowing for me is Keston here. Where are we going to play him now? Are we going to put him in the outfield somewhere? Are we going to bring him up later? Do we not think he's ready? Is there something wrong with his elbow? Because that's always been the big thing. The bat has always been ready, but is his elbow going to be able to hold up? coming out of college. So that was the big thing. And maybe they're telling us, even though he's a consensus top 10 prospect wherever you look, maybe he's just not there yet. But this is a fine signing for the Brewers, who now signed him to a 1-year deal. They signed, who else did they sign a 1-year deal? Grandal, exactly. So they've got these two guys. Again, it's not a major market team. They're middle of the pack, and now it doesn't matter about the money for 1 year. They only have him for 1 year, and they're just setting this up to just keep rolling as long as possible with their farm system.
Yeah, a lineup of potentially Lorenzo Cain, Yelich, Aguilar, Shaw, Braun, Moustakas batting 6th, Grandal 7th, and then Orlando Arcia. That is a murderer's row. Like, that is really, really scary. And what we already talked about last week with Bakota of the Cubs, the Cardinals, and even they're projecting the Pirates or the Reds, one of the two, to be decent. Like, they're projecting a very
500, yeah,
very challenging. We'll mention something in a minute, but a very challenging NL Central. So, you throw that out there, and the other part is we addressed it all last season is the pitching staff. Right now it's Chacin, Chase Anderson, Davies, Woodruff, Nelson. There's other guys, Burns and others rumored, but still not the greatest starting pitchers. But if you can go out and score 5+ runs a night, it makes a big difference. So that's kind of the approach they're going with again this year. I'm almost thinking, I wouldn't be shocked if they go make a little splash to say a Gio Gonzalez and bring him back. Maybe they spend a little more and get Keuchel, because I bet you his price tag's been dropping of late, I'm guessing. So go add another kind of, innings eater starter to go to that rotation. And then it could get really interesting there for Milwaukee.
Yeah, it depends on what they think of right now. Woodruff slotted in there. They got Jimmy Nelson coming back, and then Corbin Burns is still there in case they want to throw him in there. So they're pretty deep in that sense. All right, one more signing here. It's Sergio Romo. I mean, it's not a huge signing with the Marlins, but I think in terms of fantasy purposes, he didn't have a terrible year last year for the Rays. He saved 25 games. So that was pretty good. He was kind of the starter for the opener in a few games. I think it looks like 5 or 6 games for him. So could be a cheap source of saves that we'll probably talk about him again next week during the relief pitcher episode.
Yeah, and that's the only reason why I want to put it on there is because it's someone to keep in mind. Everyone was all stoked on getting Drew Steckenrider. He's got the job, so on and so forth. And then they go and sign Sergio Romo. And fantasy-wise, it makes things difficult. For the Marlins, it makes a million times sense, whatever you want to say. Because if he's just half decent, they can trade him and get him a prospect or two. Like, they just add more depth to the situation. So it's definitely a move the Marlins makes a ton of sense for them, but it sucks fantasy-wise. So something to keep in mind when you're going forward, because he can still get the job done. And, hey, maybe they start the opener there because they have a lot of young pitchers too. That could be an issue.
Yeah, it's going to be everywhere now.
Okay, you added something to the outline under the news section now that I think you maybe wanted to make me sad even more, or what it was. But Bruce Bochy.
Yeah. No, go for it. No, I want to hear. I don't even need to talk. Just go ahead.
Bruce Bochy is going to retire after the 2019 baseball season. I actually tweeted out when I saw the news, I'm not surprised by this, because the last couple of years, especially last year, his health is getting pretty rough with heart issues and other deals. Like, the dude can barely walk these days. And I think that a long season is just kind of getting to him. He's if the Giants can if they win 21 games this year, I'm hoping they can do that. He'll have over 1,000 wins. He'll have over 1,000 wins with the Giants.
That's gonna be close, Bubba.
It is. That's why I said I hope they can do that. I was like only half kidding.
It's gonna take until at least July 1st.
I was only half kidding with that. He's got a chance to win over 2,000 games this year, and that's if the Giants win like 72 games. Now that's going to be tough. He's won, obviously, the 3 World Series with the Giants. There's tons of stats that people tweeted out about, every other manager that's won 3 World Series in the Hall of Fame. Everybody that's got more wins, and the 8 guys after Bochy are in the Hall of Fame. He's an automatic Hall of Famer. I don't think anybody can argue that. It's going to suck to see him go, but in the last couple of years, Righetti's gone, Flannery's gone. The revolution's changing. I think that's another thing. I was wondering how Bochy and Zahid would kind of get along, because Bochy's old school and Zahid's a kind of new school boy. And I'm not saying that's what's causing this, but it kind of makes sense between his health, the new regime. I don't think he wants to go through another reload or rebuild. He had his fun. It's time to go relax and do his thing. I wouldn't be shocked if he finds his way into a front office somewhere like a lot of these guys because he has a very good baseball mind. But it will suck to see him gone because he's a crotchety, angry old man, but does love his baseball.
Yeah, like you said, I think everyone, even not Giants fans, saw this coming. There was no way at 63 years old he was going to be there for a rebuild. I mean, and he said, we're gonna do our best to win this year. It's going to be very, very tough. Although, again, even though the Padres got Machado, the Diamondbacks are coming back to earth. Who knows about the Rockies? I mean, their pitchers could come back to earth. You could slide in a second. Now, granted, I don't think that a wild card will be in your sights, but hopefully there's some good baseball and you can get to close to 80 wins, and that'll be good to kind of send him off.
Yeah, just make a little run, make it fun. Hey, make it like Major League One, good, whatever it takes. Have a little fun with it. It'd be interesting to say the least.
Yeah, I agree. Last bit of news before we get to our starting pitcher discussion for fantasy. Carlos Martinez has not been good news for him the last couple of years. He's shut down for 2 weeks. This could mean bullpen for him. And this could mean now we knew Alex Reyes is coming back too. I hope he's able to stay healthy because he could just lock down a rotation spot here. And, it's Adam Wainwright is going to get some starts probably.
Yeah, it's kind of – I'm not surprised. It sucks, but I'm not surprised. I think there's a reason why there's always rumors of him even last year going back to the bullpen when he came back. There's something wrong with this guy. He's just not healing. I don't know if they're not doing the right procedure, if the doctors suck. I have no idea. But it's not working out there for Carmart, and it sucks. But it's an embarrassment of riches the Cardinals have because, Reyes, they weren't ready to stretch him out yet. But if they decide to stretch him out, oh, boy, that is going to be nice. Plus, you have Gant, you have Ponce de Leon, you have, again, you mentioned Wainwright, Waka, and I'm missing a few others. They have so many options in their system. I think Matt Thompson mentioned like 9 starters they could put out if they really wanted to. And let alone they also have money they can go spend. So there's options for the Cardinals. They're not dead to rights. And honestly, I think Carlos would be a good, Archie Bradley type, go pitch 1 or 2 innings when it matters, and then get a couple days off. You just, baby him until the postseason. It'll be just fine for them.
Yeah, I was a big Carlos guy last year, for fantasy, and the injury happened. It just didn't. He didn't take that next step like I thought he would. Like I legit thought he was going to be like a top 15 starter in fantasy, maybe even top 10. I thought that's the trend that he was going on last year, and just his arm just isn't there. And I know you mentioned last year when we talked about it that there was a possibility that maybe he doesn't agree with what the Cardinals doctors are saying, and he's not really trying to pitch through it when they say he's healthy. So that could be an issue as well.
Yeah, there's something weird going on there that we don't know all the answers to. That's for sure.
Right.
Let's get into some fantasy baseball. Starting pitchers. We wrapped up outfield last week, and like we already said with Max Kepler, there's so many outfielders. There's so many starting pitchers. We're not going to cover them all. Plain and simple. We're going to miss some. Just follow our timelines. We'll probably tweet about them one way or another. But we have a handful to talk about, kind of the more relevant, fun ones here. I just want to kick it off and ask your opinion on it because there's the big 3. There's Scherzer, there's Sale, there's DeGrom. I've seen them go in all different orders in all different drafts. Like it's all kind of personal preference on what you feel. The biggest question mark with Sale for me, and I wanted to get your opinion because you hear all the news out there, is, last year they kind of had to shut him down for a little bit and then baby him back. Is there a concern with Sale coming in this year? Are we ready, or are we ready to unleash the normal Sale? Like, what are you hearing in Boston?
So from everything, even the owner, John Henry, came out the other day and basically said that he's healthy. They had a little issue last year. They had to kind of shut him down a little bit and get him back. This is not the first time that this has happened with Sale. Granted, last year was a little bit different than normal. Normal, he just kind of looks like he tires a little bit towards the middle of August into September, and he's not the same Chris Sale. He's like a high 3, low 4 guy, which, again, isn't terrible if you're the 4th starter and not counted on as the ace of the Boston Red Sox or any team for that matter. And now last year was a different territory where his arm really fatigued and he couldn't pitch at all. That is a scary thing. Having said that, they're saying he's healthy. I'm not worried about him going into the season, but I think the approach you have to take, depending on what kind of league you have, is maybe if you get to the end of June, you look at what you have, especially if you're in a roto league, and you're like, all right, I'm up top for pitching. Ks, quality starts and whatnot, ERA, I'm up top. I need some homers. I need some steals. I need some hitting, or I need saves. Maybe that's when you flip Chris Sale. You say, I'll take the 3 good months. and then I'll flip Chris Sale and try to catch up in some other categories and hope that the rest of my starters can maintain what we have. And if I'm right about him for what he's done the last couple of years, I'm not going to lose as much as I possibly think. That's probably the strategy that I would take if I was a fantasy owner of Chris Sale, which I am, but it's in a 20-team keeper, so it's a little bit tougher.
Yeah, you're not going to trade him in that format.
Right.
If you're coming up and none of the big three are off the board, how do you rank the top three?
I still go Scherzer 1, even though, look, there's got to be a point where he does start to drop off a little bit. He's 35 years old. This is not going to last forever. The guy was a horse his entire career, and he's a maniac. So maybe he's a different breed, and he's the Tom Brady of baseball. I don't know, but I would go him first, and then I would still go Sale 2, because Sale still has a track record of being that guy. DeGrom last year was different territory for him. Sure, he's always been a tremendous starter, but I don't think you can put him in front of Sale and Scherzer unless you actually believe that Sale's arm is going to be trouble, and you don't want to deal with that last 2 months of his year.
Yeah, no, it's very tricky. I go Scherzer, DeGrom, Sale just because I'm worried about Sale, but I could see any scenario and I could care less which way you go. And I think Scherzer's just the one for me, the clear one. The other ones are kind of up in the air.
Yeah,
I think Scherzer's just so damn good. And if one year it's going to fall apart, and that's fine. But I'll ride that horse till it falls apart. That's fine.
Yep.
All right, let's talk about some in or outs on some ADPs. These are a lot of studs for the most part, and a couple really questionable ones. One named Madison Bumgarner, but Blake Snell. Since February 1st. He's going pick 30. He's the 8th starting pitcher off the board, coming off a career year, Mo. Are you in or are you out on Blake Snell?
Oh, poor Yancey and Collette and the rest of the Rays fans. I'm out on Snell. I just don't think that he can do what he did last year. I think he's a tremendous pitcher. I still think he's going to be a very good pitcher, but I think he's going to regress to, again, he's not going to have a 1.89 ERA again. Depending on what league, I think most leagues probably don't even use wins anymore. It's mostly quality starts, which is what most leagues should do, because wins, you can't really count on those. He won 21 games, so that's a big barometer for a league that does use wins. That was huge for you last year. His second half, I had it up here as I get it open here, but there's just a lot there. I mean, the 2.95 FIP, I'm not going to go off FIP the whole time. I just think there are a lot of things that actually second half was unbelievable, but there's just a lot of things that really don't jive for him to be at 27. I think that I could probably get a guy 10 picks later and be okay with it. Severino is probably just right behind him. Yep, I think honestly, I would probably choose Severino over Snell right now. There are just some things that I just, it just isn't there for me for Blake Snell at that high. There's no way he's going to be a sub 2 ERA again.
Yeah, and that's the biggest thing is I'm not a fan of buying guys off of career years, and that's what you're paying for. You're paying I had a Cy Young, I had an ERA below 2, I had a Pedro Martinez career year season, and now you got to pay for it. Like, he's going to be very, very good. I recommend people go check out Tim Heaney's of RotoWire's Twitter feed. He was tweeting out a thread earlier this morning breaking down like the strand rates. He had like, I think, a 78 or 88% strand rate.
88%. 88%.
Which is asinine. Oh, yeah, I got it right here in front of me. I should just read. Yeah. It's asinine for a starting pitcher. Like, Heaney points out that's relief pitcher numbers because you come in with guys on base. Like, you should not be stranding guys. His insane strikeout rate is what helped him with that. He still might strike out a lot of guys, but you got to be realistic about the whole scenario here. So on and so forth down the list of reasons. He's still going to be extremely good, like really, really good. If for some reason he keeps falling, because like I said, he's all the way back down to the 30th pick now. He's already fallen 3 or 4 picks since January to February. If he keeps falling down, well, okay, now you got a discussion to make. Like, if he gets to around pick 40 and you took 3 hitters first, now you're looking for your ace, sure. Now you're finding value. But where he's at now, it's very, very difficult. And like you said, you got Luis Severino going 3 picks behind him now. He's actually moved up a little bit since January when it comes to February ADP. I'm in on him. We already talked about him a ton on the extension deal. Assuming since you like him over Snell, are you in on Severino?
I am in on Severino. I think he is going to bounce back. I think we know that he can be what he was in 2017. And last thing on Snell, the only thing that really is great about him is he literally has 4+ pitches. I mean, that is tremendous for him. I mean, fastball, he's throwing the fastball 50% of the time, but I mean, he's literally changeup 20%, curveball 20%, slider 10%. They are 4+ pitches for him, and that really does help him a bit. Having said that, I still just like you said, left on base. There's just a few things that it's. I think Steamer has it correct. Just to end on Snell is like 3.20, and will he strike out that 30% of batters? Not sure it'll be that high either. So it's something to watch there. But yeah, I'm in on Severino. I mean, his down year last year was 3.39 ERA with a 2.95 FIP. I mean, everything else was sort of right in line. The BABIP was a little bit higher, so he was a little bit unlucky. 3.14 BABIP compared to 2.72 the year before. I think he's going to be around that 3 ERA. I mean, Steamer doesn't like him. The bat loves him. 2.99 ERA. Steamer has him at 3.45. They all have him around the same K rate, which is what he's going to be. And again, 193 innings the year before, 191 last year. So he's going to be right around that 200 innings. Everything is there. I just think, like I said, that I think he tipped his pitches a little bit, and he's going to fix that. The Yankees will fix that for him.
Yeah, that article you mentioned on The Athletic, it's pretty plain and clear on what was going wrong. So they should get that addressed, fixed, no problem. He's going to be a stud, assuming, no injuries, which we cannot predict at this point in time.
Correct.
The next guy that kind of goes in this realm of young, just phenoms, he's a whopping 20, he'll be 25 later this year. Walker Buehler is awesome. This guy is really, really good. He's going about pick 37 right now. You were mentioning second half numbers for Snell. Second half numbers for Walker Buehler are insane. A 2.03 ERA.
Yeah,
he had 92 strikeouts and 80 innings pitched. A 164 average against. He was just absolutely ridiculous. The kid's getting better and better. Kershaw came out already this spring and just gave like an essay on why Walker Buehler is so good. And he basically said he's better than me and explained why. It wasn't just like being nice to the kid. He broke it down where you're like, oh shit, like he's telling the truth here. This guy's really good. And one of my favorite pictures to show just how good Buehler is that postseason start he had. And I believe it was Koufax in the front row of Dodger Stadium standing up and applauding him as Buehler comes into the dugout.
Yeah, it absolutely was. I remember that. Yep.
That's one of the pictures where you're just like, okay, this kid's good. So I'm all in on him. What's your thoughts on Buehler this year?
Look, the big thing for me with Walker Buehler, I think he's a stud as well. Okay, but I'm worried about the innings.
They've already said he's going to get like 160-ish, 170.
The Dodgers are going to find a way to use that phantom DL a few times, and they really are for him. Most of the folks, the bat, depth charts, Steamer, have him around 163 to 168. It's tough to invest. Now, granted, if he's going to give you 2.62 ERA with around 10 Ks per nine, yeah, you're still going to take that at pick 36. It's really tough. Now, granted, I'm going to take him over Kershaw, but it's really tough to know that this guy is going to be sitting out at some point during the season. And if he doesn't perform like we think he's going to perform, then it's kind of a wasted pick that early in a redraft league. Having said that, you got to be all in on him on dynasty and keeper leagues. It's just that's easy. But I haven't really decided yet. I guess it depends on, like, I think we both have the 6th pick in Great Fantasy Baseball Invitational. He might be there, and it might have to take him.
Yeah, the
second pick.
The second he'll be there for sure. The third round is the interesting one. That'll be the deciding factor if he's still sitting there. So these three guys you mentioned Snell, Severino, and Buehler. Do you just have Severino over all three of them?
At this point, I do. Yeah, I do. It's just what you're going to get from Severino. I mean, he's as consistent as they come, and even like I said, even in the down year, is a 3.35 ERA. So it's I'm not worried about him.
Yep, I can dig that for sure. Buehler, I do like. I like him over Snell. The innings is a concern, but if you give me 170, 165 of those innings, I'll take that big time. But it is interesting there. Another guy you mentioned on this list here, Clayton Kershaw. He's going around 40 right now, give or take, and I will keep it short and simple. I want nothing to do with Clayton Kershaw.
I don't either. Down, the velocity's down to 91 now. His which will make the rest of his pitches less effective. His slider is still tremendous, but his fastball was the worst that it's been in his entire career last year. So I'm not there anymore. His swinging strike is down to 11%. The contact rate was way up to 78%. So there's more batted balls in play. I just can't get on board. And you know what's funny is, like, even in a bad year for him, he still had a 2.74 ERA. I mean, the guy is awesome, but like, it's just not there anymore. Now, if you tell me in the first month his velocity's back up to 93, obviously I wouldn't have drafted him, but it's something to look at in daily fantasy at least, or maybe you can kind of get him in a trade somehow.
Yeah, it'll be interesting to see how Kershaw does this year. I just don't trust that back at all. A lot of signs pointing in the wrong direction. I guess eventually everyone becomes a value, but I just don't know where I'll find it with Clayton Kershaw. If you want to take a Clayton Kershaw light, in theory, basically a lot of really good memories of this man, but things are questionable. Is you got Madison Bumgarner going around pick 80 right now. And I'm just going to say right now, if he's around pick 80, I'm going to seriously consider it. It's not even a homerish bias there. There's a lot to like about Mad Bum. Yes, the velocity's down, but even when he's struggling, he has a 3.3 ERA. Strikeouts were down, yes, but the whip, ERA, all those kind of stats are going to be in your favor. I expect the strikeouts to get a little better this year, as with a guy like Madison Bumgarner, everything's not the things aren't broken. He had a broken finger and a busted shoulder, which should be healed by now. But when it comes to a guy like Bumgarner, if anyone's determined to learn how to pitch with what you have, not just try to throw, I trust Bumgarner to figure that out. And everything I've heard from him in spring training so far is he is pissed off, and he's heard everything people have said, and he's trying to make a point to prove people wrong. So I'll keep watching spring, but I'm going to keep a close eye on him at this point, because I think he's not your number one, maybe a number 3, and I could go with that.
Well, you know why he wants to prove everyone wrong is because he wants a contract.
Well, yeah, but So again, for fantasy, I'm in.
so around him, I'm out on him. Around him, here's a good one. You take it. Well, first one, is it Berrios or is it Bumgarner?
Berrios, after talking to Matt Modica, I'm becoming much more intrigued by, because looking at some of those numbers, I didn't realize the stuff he actually had last year. It just seemed like he was so tilting whenever I used him in fantasy and daily. He was actually much better than I thought as he kind of developed as the season went on. So I'd probably go Berrios, definitely because of the upside.
If he can cut down the homers, his
homer numbers are insane.
Yeah, it's not great. Did you see? And then let me look up the tweet. But while I'm just talking about Berrios, did you see John Sickles' tweet today?
No,
the prospect guy. If I can, now I'm not going to be able to find it. Anyways, he tweeted something today about him saying 2019 Cy Young winner, like 20-4, 2.83 ERA, 230 Ks. Like, I don't know whether it was. I mean, he's an older guy, so I don't think he knows what trolling is. So I think this is actually like a real tweet. So I think I'm gonna have to find it, but it's he's literally like in on him. So it's something to look into, and I know he's got all the stuff in the world. We've talked about it way too many times before. What about Bumgarner and Marquez?
I'll take Bumgarner.
Yeah, Marquez one is just so interesting. He is just the Rockies guys are always very interesting. Now, what about Bumgarner?
Yeah,
go ahead. Go ahead on the Rockies.
Well, we'll talk about the Rockies guys in a minute, so I'll save that for that.
What about Bumgarner or Wheeler?
That one's a lot trickier for me because I am a big Zach Wheeler fan.
Me too.
I like the development he made there. Like, I'm not going to compare him to Walker Buehler, but he reminds me of a mini Walker Buehler, if that makes any sense to people. Like, he's a similar build, similar stuff. He's probably not as consistent, but still, in 182, Wheeler threw 182 innings last year. I don't think people realize that. Like, he was out there for 29 starts, and he had a 3.31 ERA. I'm pretty sure I'd take the chance on on Wheeler over Bumgarner.
Yeah. Okay. I like it.
All right. Luis Castillo, I wanted to throw him on here just for the fact that he was everyone's darling last year, let everybody down, but his second half numbers were insane, just like the year before, to get us all on the bandwagon. He did it all over again just to wheel me in. But this kid has the stuff. Like we just said with Berrios, the stuff is there. Can he figure it out between his ears? Who knows? He's actually better at home
I
than
was
on
just
the
going
road.
to say, a run and a half better.
So many of his numbers are just so confusing that, and same with Berrios. Berrios is better at home than on the road. Like I think I was thinking of maybe because they're so young, they like the comfort of their home. They're not good at the traveling yet. I don't know.
Yeah.
A lot of weird factors there, but are you buying back into Castillo at pick 102?
I am. I'm going to be one of those guys again, and we'll talk about one of the Rockies guys that I'm still driving the bus a little bit, but it's I'm in on him. I really am, and I think that he was a little bit unlucky at times. But you said his second half. I mean, if he can figure out if he can have a 3.5 ERA in the bandbox that is the Great American Ballpark, he's got to be able to figure something out on the road. Unless he somehow pitched like 4 times in Colorado last year and we didn't even know about it or something. I know he didn't because it's really almost not possible. But it's like, dude, figure it out. I mean, you can pitch in that place. You can pitch anywhere.
Yeah.
Anywhere. So, yeah, I'm in. I just drafted him actually in one of my keeper leagues. And I think it was like our second round, like the beginning of the second round. So we keep 10 keepers. So I thought I was pretty happy with that.
Yeah, his XFIP shows that there's a lot to like about him last year, and he actually had a better WAR than the year before. But given he pitched, 90 more innings, but be interesting to see how that works. But I will definitely be back in on Castillo for sure.
Yeah.
All right, the Rockies, elephant in the room here. We have German Marquez going around pick 77, Freeland around pick 158, and I'm pretty sure the one you're banging the drum for, John Gray, around pick 203. Now, everyone's in love with German Marquez. People were in love with Freeland, but then they started backing up and making excuses of why not. John Gray, people seem to be forgetting. Like you said, bang the drum for him. We know all the goods. We know all the bads. The biggest bad is they pitch in Coors Field for half the season. One thing I will mention before I get your take on these three is I probably will not own any of them unless they continue to fall the way they're falling. And when I did that barf draft, I was amazed. They were falling probably 20 to 30 picks or more past their ADP. They're dropping a ton right now. So all the hype was there, but now when people have to actually draft, things have changed. So what's your take on the Colorado pictures that I will probably have none of?
Okay, let me start with John Gray, okay, that I'm driving the bus still, but it has a really, really bad transmission problem. It could break down anywhere.
Ball tires, maybe?
It's literally, we need new tires. We need everything. It's a lot going on there, except for the fact that it still has an RPM. It has a little juice to it because his swinging strike rate is still there. Okay, we know he has good stuff, quote unquote, right? That's really what it is. And his first half was still okay. His second half is when really just everyone jumped off. I mean, he just started he didn't strike anyone out anymore. He let up literally 2 homers per 9. It just fell off a cliff. I don't know exactly what happened to him in terms of, you go look at his pitch velocity graphs. It just, in terms of his fastball, it went down a little bit. And then his last 2 starts, it went up. So the velocity went down towards the second half of the season. You have to hope that gets back up because if it does, he's still going to be value, even though it's Coors Field and it's, you don't know what you're going to get each start. You really don't. So it's still at 203. There's still value there for that guy. So that's where I'm at with John Gray. I think you're out. So it's just any comments. You sure you don't want to ride? I mean, you can call shotgun if you want. I mean,
he's gonna have to fall. Like the thing I'll give to his favor is Alex Reyes is gonna go balloon up, so he won't be there here pretty soon. But right around him, I'd rather have Gray over Lester. I'll go there. Gray and Lucchesi is very interesting. But then you got guys like Musgrove behind him. I'll go Musgrove. Alex Wood, I take a look at. Stripling's back there. It's such a spot where I'd almost rather go somewhere else. I'm still not on him, I don't think.
Okay, I like that. And let's keep going, closer as we get to Marquez, who's the highest one. You got Kyle Freeland. And I actually, say what you want about Derek Hardy, right? Everyone kind of hates on him, and
He's actually kind of growing on me. It's really weird.
he's growing on me a little bit. I mean, even though he said today that Manny Machado like isn't like the top 10 player or even close to it, but Harper is. And then like the tweet later, or literally it was like the next couple minutes, he was like, "Oh, now that I look at it again, it's like, wait, so you posted that tweet to get a rise out of everyone, and then you kind of hiding that reply in there." That was a weird one to me.
That's what he does. Is he throws shit at the wall to see what can rile people up. He's basically like Tommy G without the vulgarity, is how I'll put that out there. So and then he actually has a computer brain behind him to figure it out.
Right.
So that's kind of where he is. The only thing that kind of bugs me with guys like Cardi and a few others is I respect the computer revolution. I respect all that, but you got to also have a little knowledge of what the hell is actually going on out there. That's where things kind of bug me sometimes with guys like Cardi.
Yeah, and we're throwing a lot of. I feel like we don't throw too many crazy stats. I know we talked about a new one probably 20 podcasts ago or whatever it was. I forget exactly what it was, but literally we're throwing out simple stats, at least in my opinion. We're not going crazy on it. And there was a whole thread with him and Sporer with Rockies fans where it was like, well, he could have a 2.85 ERA or 4.08. And the Rockies fans were arguing like, well, how do you know which one's going to be? You don't really know, without giving their reasons why he could be closer to 3. Look, as crazy as this is, the bat has him at 4.11 ERA. They are the highest on him. Steamer has him at 4.62. I mean, like big time drop down. There's not a high K upside with him. It just isn't there. I probably won't be in on him at all. There's just not enough upside there. And again, 17 wins. Great if you have wins in a head-to-head league or a roto league. Most leagues of quality starts. It's going to be tough to come by in Coors Field.
Yeah, he eats up innings, but he doesn't strike guys out. So he lives on a 285 BABIP, which in Coors Field is insane because it's one of the biggest BABIP bumps in baseball. His 2.85 ERA outstanding, but a 4.22 xFIP. There's just so many factors that, like, the guy, he's going to have good starts. I'm not saying he's not streamable at all. I think he's very streamable, but he's not really going to help out your overall production where you can go gamble on a guy like Tyler Glass now right next to him. You got Andrew Heaney, Yu Darvish, maybe bounce back, Erod, Eovaldi. There's all kinds of, it's another weird blob of guys here, but I think I'll just be off of him. There's too much volatility. He lives in the zone way too much to not get the crap beat out of him.
Yeah, I'm probably going behind him, right? I'm taking Ryu over him. I'm a Josh James guy. Maybe probably not Alex Reyes because you just don't know his whole situation. So there are guys that I will wait behind him as well. Even probably 70 picks later in a Joe Musgrove. I mean, that's probably someone I would rather wait on than take a chance on Kyle Freeland at Coors Field, and it's just not for me.
Exactly. And then what are your thoughts on Marquez, the Golden Goose?
Yeah, this is a tough one because he actually has some peripherals that really just jump out at you and say, this guy might be pretty good. Obviously, 3.77 ERA, you just look at his FIP and his xFIP, his BABIP isn't as low as it is, it's pretty much the same as it was in 2017, yet he was almost a run better than he was back then. His K percentage went way up from 21% to 28%. A lot of people like to go off Sierra. His Sierra was 3.31, so everything works out there. I kind of like him. It's just the swing strike rate went up 3%. That's huge. Contact rate went down 8%. In Coors Field, that's tremendous. And his second half was insane. I mean, it really was insane. I'm gonna be in on him. I think I'm gonna give him a shot. I really am. I think he has the stuff. I really do. Never a top prospect, and Coors Field is there. But when I look at people around him, Bubba, I already mentioned I'm not a Bumgarner guy. Zach Wheeler's a little tough. I'm not really a Fultonavich guy. A couple other guys around him. Michaelis, not a ton of K upside there. David Price, I like David Price a lot, but Marquez may have way more upside than him. So I think I'm going to be in on him.
Yeah, man, more power to you. I can't do it. The numbers, like you said, the peripherals actually look good compared to any of the other tours guys. You know, the O swing increase, the overall swinging strike increase, like you said. Um, there is a lot to like with what he's doing. First pitch strike was better. All the peripherals show that he was legit last year. So it is really interesting with him. I'm not doing it. I'm not playing that game. I'm not playing the Coors Field game. Maybe I just have too much PTSD from taking guys like John Gray and others. It's terrifying. I'll go grab a bat right there. I won't even in that whole realm of question marks. Go give me a bat and we'll just walk away. But I think I'll pass on German Marquez, and if he goes off, trust me, all of Twitter will let us know. So,
yeah, and having said that, I'd like to get. I probably, if I need a second starter, I probably might take a chance on him. I'd like to get 2 starters before that.
And that's another part there, like Marquez, a Bumgarner, some of these questionable guys we've talked about. If they're like your third or your fourth, okay, fine, no big deal.
Right.
But if you're like trying to anchor your staff with these guys, you better really cross your fingers or have some nice sleepers coming up behind them.
Yep. Yeah, I agree.
All right. A couple final things here, some player debates. We've talked on some of these guys. Give me your thoughts on them. I kind of have an idea where you're going here, but Blake Snell versus Carlos Carrasco.
Yeah, I pretty much foreshadowed it. I'm a huge Carrasco guy this year. Huge. Not that that's tough to do because, he's a top 10 pitcher, right? And he really is, but I think he's going to be a top 5 starter this year in fantasy.
Do you like Carrasco over Trevor Bauer?
I do.
Okay. Another one, the big 4 that's in Cleveland, the reason why they can make trades right now, Mike Clevenger versus Jameson Taillon. It's very interesting because both have been hyped up quite a bit. Some Taillon a little more than Clevenger. Both showed signs of life last year in the second half. Are you buying in, or who do you buy in more than the other?
I buy in on Taillon. I do. I mean, they're both not. I mean, in terms of K percentage, I mean, Clevenger is a little bit higher than his, but not too much where it's going to scare me off of him. Taillon, obviously, name recognition. He was, a highly touted prospect where Clevenger really was not, and not that goes into my decision in any way, but I just think that I believe in what Taillon did in the second half, probably a little bit more than I do with Clevenger. So it's just a matter of preference for me with him. I like Taillon a lot this year. I do.
Yeah, I like Taillon to take the next step. He's going to try to be the front end guy in that staff. Clevenger is very, very good, but I think Taillon's got more swinging strike stuff, a little more upside there, and overall peripheral is a lot better. So I'll go with Taillon in that NL Central. This one's going to be fun. I already told you how I feel on Zach Wheeler. I agree David Price is a stud as well. Do you like David Price or Zach Wheeler?
I'm going man. You're talking redraft. I'm probably taking Price. And this is probably not hard to do because Price is 4 years older than him. So I'm going to take Wheeler there. Look, with Wheeler, they both have a little bit injury history, right? Wheeler was also, he was a top prospect. I mean, the Giants traded him.
Carlos Beltran.
Yeah, was literally their top pitching prospect at that time, and that was sort of when the Mets were creating this huge rotation. And he's had his injury trouble. He had 180 innings last year. Luckily, they shut him down at the end of the year. And really, he was out for pretty much 3 straight years for the Mets. And last year was finally his first year. So that was going to be a little tough one. But I'm gonna go Price because I think he figured something out at the end there.
Yeah, I go Price the overall, but I really like Wheeler. If I get stuck with Wheeler, it's not going to break my heart by any means. Just real quick here, Price or Porcello, because everyone's comparing their stats as being like identical.
Price.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you. Just wanted to make sure.
What they're comparing their stats to be identical?
Well, look at how they finished last year. There's a lot of similarities that people are already like, oh, look at Porcello doesn't get appreciated, blah, 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 blah.
I mean, he doesn't, but no,
it's there is a difference between the two.
He's an innings eater. He's not.
Price was a legit Cy Young Award winner. Porcello just kind of got into wins.
Correct.
That's how I look at it. Like you said, he's an innings eater. He's good. Where he's going in the draft makes sense, but to compare him to David Price, like some are kind of like, no.
Right. No, I agree.
All right, the last one here is kind of just a fun one between some youngsters that are getting talked up a ton. You got Shane Bieber, Yeah, Nick Pivetta and Erod, who's developing a slider, talked to him by none other than Pedro Martinez. So
Guy's
these
pretty
three,
good.
yes, that's not bad. So these three guys are all really interesting. Where do you pick out here?
I'm not a Bieber guy. I'm out on Bieber. I know he has insane control. He's not going to walk really anyone. He isn't going to do it. It's been his whole career in the minors. And he even did it, in 114 innings last year. I know the peripherals are huge. I'm not sure that fastball is good enough. I don't think it's good enough to really be a top of the line starter. Pivetta is an interesting one. His peripherals are huge too, but he's very inconsistent as well. I think I'm going to go with Erod, and maybe this is somewhat of a homer pick, but the beginning of last season for Erod, it was good. It was very good. I mean, until he got hurt again, which that's a big issue with him. I think you could compare to Bieber and Pivetta. You don't know if they're going to stay healthy, but Erod has a track record of only pitching around 130 innings a year. So you talk about Walker Buehler, and granted, not the same pitcher, but Erod he hasn't gone over 137 innings in his entire career with the Red Sox. So that's really a struggle, but I'm going to go with Erod there. I probably would go Erod, Pivetta, Bieber.
Yeah, I think I'm in the same boat with you there. I agree with a lot of that. I think Erod's really he's going to move into that Porcello type realm, or
Yep.
maybe better than Porcello.
Yeah, I was going to say fantasy wise, he'd probably be in a better category than that. Yeah.
Yeah, so that's kind of what I'm looking at here. Pivetta and Bieber, they're going to have a lot of good starts, but a lot of like, oh shit starts. Where Erod, I think it's like a more like 2-to-1 or 3-to-1 ratio in those kind of situations. I think there's a lot to like there if you can stay healthy.
Agreed.
All right. Let's say after pick 200, give me a handful of guys you're targeting here.
Yeah, real quick. I think there's a few here. I mean, Ross Stripling is always there. I think that depending on when, if he's going to get enough innings and whatnot, that's one to look at. I already mentioned Joe Musgrove. I'll be in on him. Jesus Luzardo, that's the guy. It's just how much is he going to pitch? Is he going to be up there at the beginning? Some people say yes, some people say no. You have to watch out for that. The interesting one is sort of that fifth starter, the fourth or fifth starter for the Astros. And right now the guy is Colin McHugh, and he is very, very interesting. I know some people on Twitter, it might have been either Rob Silver or Vlad kind of, someone said something. They said, shh, be quiet. Don't say anything. Let's not talk him up. So I mean, that's another guy that I'm looking at. It's just, can he stretch out again? And how many innings can he actually give being in the bullpen the last couple of years? And then a couple of guys that I can't quit because of, the stuff and whatnot. And if you can somehow really get them to, if you can pick their spot starts in a deep league, these are two guys that I would take, and that's Dylan Bundy and Carlos Rodon. I can't quit Rodon. I really can't. It's probably 3 years straight that I've had some sort of share of him, whether it's, holding on to him and whatnot. And then the last guy I think is Mike Soroka, if he can really, really get locked down a rotation spot.
Yeah, I have Musgrove here. We talked about him already. Luzardo, big fan there. I had Bundy and Soroka down here because the latest news is Soroka should be the fifth guy there. So I like that. And Bundy's stuff is still too good. Like something's going to click one day. It's tough, and I agree with the Rodon comment. A couple of other guys to keep an eye on with spring news. Jimmy Nelson, he's coming back, and they're already saying he's like way ahead of schedule, should be good to go. Still listening to see what kind of workload they're going to give him, but he could be an extreme value there at 237 if all things are a go. Matt Boyd, still pretty good at that point in the draft. And then a couple of really late ones, 348. You're not expecting a ton, but at that point in the draft, Derek Collins, actually, it's not going to kill you. He's actually pitched a lot better. He uses curveball a ton more. Sporer was talking about it recently, and watching him all last year, he's a lot better than the old Derek Collins. So at AT&T Park for 348, I don't mind it. And then another guy to keep an eye on, Jason Collette broke it down, and it's similar to what we talked about with Lance Lynn missing most of spring training. Keep an eye on Jake Odorizzi at pick 380. The kid's stuff is still very good, and after first third of the season, he pitched really, really well last year. So keep an eye on Odorizzi. I think it was 2 or 3 starts that he really got blown up on. Everything else, He had like a combined around 3.5 ERA and whatnot. So not bad at pick 380 overall.
I can't believe we're talking about Odorizzi. It's insane. It's really insane to me. Like what he was in 2017, and then like really, like you said last year at the end of it, he was really good.
Yeah, it's just, and people just don't look at the whole picture. So 380, it's like your last pick in a draft. What do you have to lose? You can drop him if he sucks. So stuff to think about. There's a ton we didn't mention. Like I literally just scrolling through that. There's a ton of guys we could talk about, but well, we can't be here all night. If you want 4-hour podcasts, go listen to Sleeper on the Bus. They'll take care of you over there. But that's just not my style. So
I listen to it. So
yeah, no, I listen to it when I'm working. I just can't. I can't imagine. I'd rather break that up into like 3 or 4 shows. But,
I'm with you.
Any final thoughts? We got Machado off the board. Does Harper sign in the next 48 hours?
I said today it's got to be done by the end of tomorrow. I mean, I don't see, unless somehow someone else comes in at the last moment, like the Cardinals fans that we follow still have like the outside hope that they'll just swoop in and do it. It's the Phillies. It's going to happen, and then hopefully the rest of them that will sign, because the more time a guy like Keuchel or any of those other guys lose, you're going to see struggles at the beginning of the season, because that's their spring training.
Yeah. So when you're drafting these guys, just realize that, build it into your kind of thought process, and it's showing in ADPs as well. But yeah, I think Harper signs before the first games this Saturday. I'll open it a little wider, but I think he'll want to report before the first set of games get going.
Yeah.
But yeah, it should be a good one. Episode 100 next week. It'll be fun. We made it that far. You can, hey, it's a big milestone.
I know it is. It is. We'll have someone on. We'll spread it out so you don't have to listen to 2 of us again.
There you go. You can find Mo on Twitter at Boston_Mo. I'm at BDintric Pod at Around Bases Pod. Around the Base with Bubba Mo. Episode 99 in the books. Catch you guys later.
See you.